Hello everybody, it's your swole brother number one, Sean Heisen here. I want to show you how you can write your own workouts. Maybe you're fairly new to training and you want to transform your physique by gaining a lot of muscle or losing a bunch of fat. Maybe you've been lifting for years and years already and you just want to learn how to get more out of your gym time and be more efficient. I'm going to help you do that today. I'm going to do a deep dive on how I write workouts for myself as well as for clients. By the end, I think you'll see that you really don't need a background in exercise science or even a lot of gym experience to write effective programs. What you do need is to be very clear on what your goals are and be able to apply some critical thinking. When you can do that, you can answer a lot of questions that come up along the way for yourself. If you like how this goes, please give it a like and subscribe for more content. All right, first things first, frequency. Let's figure out how many days per week you want to train. The most common workout splits are going to be 3 days per week or 4 days per week. If you want to do 3 days per week, I would recommend doing 3 full body workouts, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Or you could alternate upper and lower sessions. So you could do like upper on Monday, lower on Wednesday, upper again on Friday, and then the next week do lower, upper, lower. If you want to train 4 days a week, you can do an upper-lower split. Do upper, lower. So 2 upper days, 2 lower days in a 7-day period. Whatever split you come up with, just make sure you hit the muscles 2 times in a 7-day period. If you train infrequently, you're going to be less likely to get enough of the volume you need, the number of sets, total in the week to make gains. And you can actually detrain a little bit and lose adaptation. But let's say you're going to do 3 full body days, because that's easier to explain. It works very, very well, and you train everything in each session. I'll come back to this idea in a bit. Exercise selection. Now let's pick our exercises. The only hard rules here that you have to follow, in my opinion, are 1, include some compound multi-joint movements. These are exercises like squats, presses, rows. They work a lot of muscle at once. You really do this for the sake of efficiency. That way you don't have to use a lot of isolation exercises to train one small muscle group at a time. When you use multi-joint movements, you can train a lot of things in one shot. For example, you should do some arm curls for your biceps if you want to maximize biceps growth, but you're going to get a lot of biceps stimulation by doing rows and chin-ups and pull-down type movements. The second big rule is that you want to include enough variety in your exercises that you hit the muscles from different angles or put tension on them in different ranges of motion. For example, if you do a barbell back squat for the glutes, your glutes are going to work the hardest in the bottom position when they're the most stretched. But you can't just do squats and expect the best glute development. You should also do something like a hip thrust that will complement the squats, where the weight is in your lap and your glutes are going to fire the hardest as you're locking your hips out. Another example is a chest press and like a cable fly. When you do any kind of chest press, bench press, or machine press, dumbbells, whatever it is, the pecs are going to work the hardest in the bottom position when they're most stretched out. To complement that, you need to do something like a cable fly, where they're going to work the hardest in the end range of motion. This is how you're going to recruit the greatest number of muscle fibers and ultimately build the most muscle. But you don't have to do all these exercises in just one workout. As long as you're hitting the muscle from all these different angles and different ranges of tension throughout the course of a training week, or throughout the course of your program in general, you'll be fine. I'll add 2 more rules here that I always follow, but I don't hear a lot of other coaches talking about. Number 1 is that you should always choose exercises that you can progress on for a long period of time. They should be exercises that you can get really strong on. So something like, a squat, a press, a row, those big compound multi-joint movements, all the standard basic bodybuilding movements that you've seen or heard of all your life are probably generally going to be good choices. It's fancier movements like maybe a curl to a press or maybe a T push-up that are a little bit more questionable. I won't say those are bad exercises, but they're not great for physique transformation or building as much muscle as possible because you're going to run out of room on them pretty quickly. You won't be able to get much stronger on those combo lifts, generally speaking, after a few weeks. Rule number 2 is choose exercises that you can do safely and with great form. Like I said, back squats, bench presses, these classic bodybuilding exercises, they're all great, but if you have problems doing them with good form, they hurt your back, your knees, your shoulders, whatever, just don't do them. There's nothing wrong with using machines or dumbbells or your own body weight. Okay, so let's identify the basic body parts we're going to train. Every week, you should be doing something for your chest, shoulders, back, biceps, triceps, quads, glutes, hamstrings, and calves. Now, certain compound multi-joint exercises are going to cover a couple of those muscle groups at one time. But if you just want the bare minimum of results and to get in and out of the gym as quickly as possible, just cover those categories every week and you'll be fine. But if you really want to maximize your physique, you should take a bit more of a granular look at each of those muscle groups and see if you can include movements that isolate one or more parts of them better. For instance, when you train chest, you probably want to include some exercises and sets for the upper chest specifically. That's the clavicular head of the pec, this upper part here that moves your arms like that. You probably want to do some sets for the glutes as well, so they're not worked only with squatting movements and hamstring exercises. Getting a little more specific with your exercise selection goes a long way toward helping you prevent developing weak points. All right, let's go through all the body parts now and how to work them. Chest. Like I said before, when you work chest, you can choose exercises that highlight the upper chest as opposed to the middle and lower chest. This means the clavicular head of your pec. And you can do this with incline pressing exercises, incline flies, and cable flies that go from low to high. The middle and lower chest can be worked with flat presses, decline presses, flies, dips, push-ups, and all the variations on those things. Shoulders. Shoulders includes the front, side, and rear delts. Your front delts are pretty well covered already with any pressing you do. The side delts, however, need some special attention. They'll get worked when you press, but you really need to do lateral raises from different angles to work them directly. Dumbbells, cables, and machines are all fine for that. The rear delts will get worked with just about any row you do, but they also benefit from some reverse fly movements, which you can do with cables or on a machine, reverse pec deck, or dumbbells. Back. The back has two main parts to it. You can do exercises that emphasize the upper and middle back, which is your trapezius, rhomboids, and teres major, and you can work your lats. Basically, any row, particularly those where your arms, your elbows are out away from your sides, is going to emphasize the upper and middle back, while any chin up or pull down motion is going to work your lats. Biceps. Biceps are easy. Any curling motion will work them. If you want to isolate the forearms more, you can do a hammer curl, thumbs up grip, like a neutral grip, and that'll work the brachioradialis. That's your forearm muscle. You can also hit the brachialis, which is that cylinder of muscle in between your biceps and triceps, with palm down curls, like a reverse curl. Triceps. There are three parts to the triceps muscle, as the name would suggest, but there are really only two ways to work it. Pressing of any kind is going to work the lateral outer head of the triceps. You can also do push down movements where your arms are at your sides. To hit the longer inner head of the triceps, you've got to do movements where your arms are overhead, like overhead tricep extensions, lying triceps extensions, or some kind of pullover. Quads. You can do full range squats where you bend your knees completely, hamstrings against your calves, and that will stress the quads the most when they're lengthened. But then you should also do exercises that work them harder in the shortened position, main example being a leg extension. Leg presses are great for quads too. For glutes, you've got the hip thrust, like I explained before, works really well in the shortened position. There's also squatting movements, RDL, stiff-legged deadlifts, that'll work the glutes when they're stretched out. And then your single leg movements, your lunge variations, those are great as well. If you want the fullest glutes possible, you should try to target the glute medius, which is on the side of your butt. You work that by raising your leg out to the sides. So like a cable side raise or cable kickback at a roughly 45-degree angle, that's gonna work the glute medius the hardest. You could also do seated abduction exercises, AKA the bad girl exercise. But remember also, the glute medius will work as a stabilizer on your single leg movements, your lunges, your Bulgarian split squats. So it gets a lot of training doing that. Hamstrings. For hamstrings, any kind of leg curl, both seated and lying down, are great. Again, stiff-legged and Romanian deadlifts, they work the hamstrings as well, along with the glutes. You can also do single leg variations on all these exercises. It's also worth noting that any deadlift variation is going to work your lower back too, so you don't have to think about doing a lot of lower back specific exercises. Stiff legs, Romanians, basically the same exercise, and back extensions are all going to work a lot of lower back, in addition to your glutes and hamstrings. Calves. Any calf raise variation is fine. The seated calf raise doesn't seem to work as well as a straight-legged version, or at least it doesn't give you anything that straight-legged calf raises don't, but I don't think it's entirely useless either. There are plenty of standing calf raise machines that you can use, but I like the ones where you can sit, or do your calf raises on a leg press. I don't see any reason to load your spine when you just want to work calves, so give your back a break when you can. Okay, if you're paying attention, you'll notice I didn't mention abs. They're not usually on my list because seeing your abs is really all about diet. If you get lean enough, your abs are going to show. But there are several reasons that you might want to do ab training, and that's fine. If greater core strength helps you control back pain, then feel free to do plank variations or whatever you find helps shore up your lower back. Also, there are some people who can get very lean and their abs still don't show up very well. In that case, get them to grow. Do some loaded crunching exercises, build up some muscle in your abs, and they'll pop a little bit better. Crunching and sit-up motions, if they don't bother your back, are all fine. You can also do plank exercises or anything else where you're bracing your spine and holding it. Exercise order. The main thing to know with how you order your exercises is that whatever gets worked first gets worked the best. Because you're fresh, muscle recruitment is going to be at its highest. Generally, you should put your hardest, most complicated exercises like squats or bench press first in the workout, because it's harder to do those lifts well when you're fatigued later on in the session. But it really depends on your goals. If you have a bad shoulder, bad knees, bad back, you may want to put those big exercises later in the session after you've had a chance to warm up a little bit more, do some more isolated exercises like dumbbell bench presses or push-ups, leg curls, leg extensions, so you get a little pre-exhausted before you go into those heavy lifts. That might make it easier on your joints and reduce the risk for injury. Also, if you have a weak point you want to bring up, put that exercise at the front of the line. If you have weak calves, for instance, if they're underdeveloped and you want to bring them up fast, do them first every workout. Volume. This is always a controversial and complex topic, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. We know from many scientific studies that low training volumes work very well to build muscle. In fact, just one set, if taken close to failure, will build muscle. And research shows you'll make most of the gains that you can ever make for a muscle group with 5 to 10 total sets in a week for that muscle. For that reason, I like what most trainers would consider low volume for most people. That amounts to 2 to 3 sets per exercise. Now, if you want to get as big as possible, and I mean milk every last drop of potential out of your muscles, you're probably going to need a little more volume than that, at least eventually. The research shows you may need up to 20 or even more sets in a training week to maximize muscle growth. The problem is that high training volumes become impractical for most people. It takes a lot of time to do all those sets, and you can run into issues with recovery, especially if you have an active lifestyle, you play sports, you're stressed out, or you work a physical job. If you want to maximize your muscle building potential, the science suggests that you should pick 1 or 2 muscle groups at a time and gradually increase the volume for them while you put the rest of your body on maintenance. So for instance, if you want to bring up your lats, the back muscles, I would do 5 to 10 sets for chest, legs, arms, everything else, and around 10 to start for your lats, gradually increasing that over time to 20, maybe even beyond. See how you recover and monitor your progress along the way. But recognize that you can't work your entire body with 15 to 20 or more sets in a week, or at least most of us can't without spending an inordinate amount of time in the gym or overtraining. So I always say start with the minimum effective dose. As far as reps go, you need to know that just about every rep range will build muscle equally. You've probably heard that the 8 to 12 rep range is the sweet spot, and it works very well, but you can do reps that are higher or lower than that. What matters most with reps is the proximity to failure. As long as your sets are hard and you get within a rep or 2 of where you can't lift the weight anymore with good form, you're going to get enough of a stimulus to build muscle. I like lower reps for a lot of reasons. They're less fatiguing, there's evidence that lower reps are easier to recover from, and they're certainly easier to keep form on than sets of 12, 15 or more. Remember, the more reps you do, the more fatigue you accumulate, the harder it is to stay locked in and focused. That can lead to form breaks, and form breaks can cause injury for a lot of people. If you're less experienced, you'll probably be able to get to 10. If you're stronger and more experienced, you might have to stop at 8. Then increase the weight by 2.5 to 10 pounds, depending on the exercise, and repeat the process. Progressive overload has to be the most important part of your training, more so than volume. So as long as you're getting stronger over time, adding reps, adding weight, preferably both, you're going to build muscle. Rest periods. There's a lot of research that points to 2 minutes being the ideal amount of rest between sets, but it really depends on the exercise that you're doing. Bigger, harder exercises will require more rest. Easier, isolated ones like lateral raises or biceps curls, you can get by with less rest, maybe 60 to 90 seconds. The guiding principle is really to just go again whenever you feel ready to lift the heaviest amount of weight again. If you have to keep reducing the weight significantly set after set, you're probably not resting long enough. Use your best judgment, but I say err on the side of more rest. I also recommend resting between sides when you're doing single leg or single arm exercises. All right, I know that was a lot and I hope it wasn't too boring. Now let's put together a workout. Remember, we said we would do a full body routine 3 days per week. So we'll start by writing down the days. You're gonna train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday. Remember, we said that whatever you work first in the session is gonna get the best results. So let's say you wanna make chest your priority on Monday. In that case, let's start with a chest exercise. Since the upper chest is underdeveloped in most people, we'll start with an incline press, whatever kind you feel comfortable with. Now let's do a back exercise to balance out the chest work we just did. If we just push something off our chest, let's do an exercise where we're pulling something toward it. And that sounds like a row to me. Let's do a dumbbell one-arm row here. So now we have chest and back covered, at least for this workout, so let's move on to shoulders. Remember that the front delts get worked with any pressing exercise. So let's do something for the side delt. And that would be some kind of lateral raise. Let's say it's a dumbbell lateral raise. Now we can do some arm stuff. How about a dumbbell preacher curl for the biceps and cable triceps push down? Now we have to do lower body. And I don't know about you, but at this point in the workout, I'd be pretty smoked. I wouldn't want to do squats and deadlifts at this stage. So I would pick some easier, more isolated leg work. I usually like to start leg training with some hamstring and glute stuff. That warms up the hips and knees pretty well for quad exercises. And hamstrings and glutes are usually weaker on people than the quads anyway, so it's good to prioritize them. Let's do a lying leg curl here. Now we need something for quads and glutes. Since we've already done 6 exercises up to this point, fatigue is a factor. I might pick something here that hits the glutes and the quads at the same time, so we don't have to do a separate exercise for each. A leg press can work here, especially if you put your feet a little bit higher up in the platform. That'll emphasize the glutes more. Now we'll finish off the workout with some calf raises. Let's do them on the leg press since we're already there. Now we'll add the sets and reps. Remember, real easy. We're doing 2 to 3 sets of 4 to 10 reps for everything. And we'll do some rest periods too. For the incline dumbbell press, I would do 2 to 3 minutes. The row, 2 to 3 minutes. Lateral raise, 90 seconds. Preacher curl, 60 to 90 seconds. Same for the triceps push down. For the leg curl and the leg press, I would do 3 minutes each. And the calf raise, now 2 to 3 minutes. Wednesday. Now starting Wednesday, let's lead off with some leg stuff because we did upper body first on Monday. Since our glute exercise Monday had to share the stage with quads, let's do a dedicated, more isolated glute exercise now. The hip thrust is a great example. We did the lying leg curl before, so let's do the seated leg curl today. Now since quads got worked with the glutes the last time with the leg press, let's do a more isolated quad exercise. A leg extension works perfect here. Now we could round out the lower body by doing some calf raises here, but I feel like calves are a low priority for most people and they'd kind of like to just move on to upper body. So let's do the upper body stuff and then we'll come back at the end and throw calves in last. Let's do a back movement now. We did a row on Monday, so let's do a lat pull down today. Now we need a pushing movement. We did a chest focused press on Monday, so let's do a shoulder focused overhead press today. We'll make it a dumbbell overhead press. And you know what? Let's do a little more upper back work or some rear delt work to make sure those areas don't lag. This is an example of where men and women might want to train a little bit differently. Men usually like a thicker neck, bigger traps, more of that yoked look. So for them, I would recommend a barbell shrug here. Women usually don't want to have that thicker neck look, so they might want to go with a rear delt exercise. So this is sort of a choose your own adventure. You can do a shrug or a rear delt fly, whichever you prefer. Now we can squeeze in a little bit of direct chest work with some flies. We did a chest press exercise on Monday, so let's work the shortened position of the pecs with a cable fly today. Now finally, we'll put our pathetic puny calves last. You can do a seated calf raise or one on a machine. Who really gives a damn? Once again, we know our sets are going to be 2 to 3 per exercise and 4 to 10 reps. Okay, rest period. For the hip thrust, I would say 3 minutes. Seated leg curl, 2 to 3 minutes. Leg extension, 2 to 3 minutes. Pull down, 3 minutes. Dumbbell overhead press, 3 minutes. Barbell shrug, 2 minutes. Cable chest fly, 2 minutes. And the calf raise, 2 minutes. Okay, last workout of the week, Friday. We started the upper body portion of Wednesday's workout with a back movement, so let's go back to chest on Friday. We haven't done a flat chest press yet, so let's lead with that. I'll make it a machine chest press. Now we can do another back exercise here, or we can do a little bit more shoulder work. I think we'll opt for another lateral raise, but we'll make it a cable lateral raise because we did dumbbells on Monday. Now we need a back movement. We did rows with elbows in on Monday, so let's do them with elbows out on Friday and get more of an upper and middle back hit. And to save the lower back some stress, we'll do them chest supported. That means chest down on a bench. We haven't trained arms directly since Monday, so we'll get some more sets in for the biceps and triceps now. How about a hammer curl for the biceps, which will target more of the forearms. Then for triceps, let's do a cable overhead extension. That works the long head, which you remember doesn't get a lot of stimulus from pressing exercises. That takes care of upper body for the week. Now we got to finish lower body. We haven't done any single leg work yet, and that's important for keeping mobility and preventing imbalances. So let's do a lunge. We'll make it a reverse lunge, which hits the glutes and the quads pretty well. You might want to wear some lifting straps here so your grip isn't a limiting factor this deep in the workout. That just leaves hamstrings and calves left. How about a back extension for hamstrings, since like I said, our grip is going to be pretty shot, and we've already done leg curl. The back extension will work the glutes, the hamstrings, and the lower back, the spinal erectors, and it doesn't put a lot of stress on the lower back like a deadlift variation would. Now we'll finish off with a single leg calf raise. Working one side at a time gives the calves a little more isolation, and it might help make up for the fact that we totally deprioritize them on Wednesday. Again, we'll give everything 2 to 3 sets of 4 to 10 reps. Rest periods for the chest press, again, 3 minutes. Lateral raise, 2 minutes. Chest supported row, 3 minutes. Hammer curl, 2 minutes. Triceps extension, 2 minutes. Reverse lunge, 2 to 3 minutes. Back extension, 2 to 3 minutes. Single leg calf raise, 2 to 3. Now, if you want to save time, you could alternate sets of some of these exercises so you don't have to rest so long in between. That goes for all 3 workouts. You can do the curls, then rest 60 seconds and stay in the same cable for the overhead triceps. That'll make the workout move a little faster. Wherever you see a press and a row, you can alternate sets of those as well. Leg exercises are a little tougher to pair off because you usually can't let one side of the legs rest while you work the other side. But you can if it's a leg extension and leg curl. But remember also that unless you train at odd hours or at home in your own gym, you have to share the gym with other people. And if you go off to a new station when you still have sets to do on the last one, it may not be waiting for you when you get back. So if you're going to do alternating sets or supersets, make sure you can be consistent with that approach. Ideally consistent with it every single workout so you can see how you're progressing. And there you have your full body program for the week. Now let's double check a few things. We said before that we need between 5 and 10 total sets for the week for a muscle group. So let's make sure we're in that range. Well, if we do 2 sets for chest on Monday, 2 more on Wednesday, and 2 more on Friday, that's 6 total sets for the week. And remember, that's the minimum. If you do 3 sets for all those exercises, you'll be at 9 sets for the week. It looks like we're getting about the same amount of work for back, and that's important because you want to make sure that you're balancing front and back of the body. However much work you do for the front side of the body, you should be sure you're doing at least as much for the back side. That especially holds true when you're talking about chest and back. Now, the volume for some muscles is a little harder to count. Like side delts, for instance. They're going to get worked with any kind of pressing, but they really work hardest on lateral raises. So the side delts are getting 4 to 6 sets of direct work in this program, and another 6 to 9 sets with the pressing exercises. So it's hard to say exactly how much stimulation they're getting, but it's certainly within the range that you need to build muscle. The hamstring and glute work is pretty balanced with the quad work. It's also important to note that no program is going to be perfectly balanced. You have to change things over time and see how some muscles are responding and where you might need to add extra volume to keep things even. But if you want to set it and forget it program that'll work for you for months, maybe even years on end, what I've given you today is a pretty good start. Now you can do these workouts as written every week, or you can change the workouts week to week. You might want to have some alternate exercises you pop in and out for some or all of the moves we wrote down. In other words, this could be your routine for week 1, but then in week 2 you have a different group of exercises, i.e. different chest presses, different rows, different quad exercises. You don't want too much variety because it's important to stay consistent and, like I said, monitor progressive overload. You want to make sure you're getting stronger over time, and you can only really do that when you're practicing the same exercises over and over. But if you find you get bored easily, you don't have to do the exact same thing every week. I think it's also worth noting that we did legs at the end of 2 of the 3 workouts. That doesn't mean you can't do legs first if you want, but leg training is very fatiguing. And if you always do legs first, I think you'll find your upper body gains suffer. Meanwhile, the reverse isn't true. You can hit upper body hard and still have enough in the tank to work legs hard at the end of the session. So there you have it. That's how you can write a great workout program yourself based on all the latest muscle building knowledge we have. Now this was full body. If you guys want me to show you how to do an upper-lower split or a body part split or some other kind of schedule, let me know in the comments. And hit me with any other questions you might have and I'll come back and answer them. Again, please give this a like if it helped you and subscribe to this channel for more. I also have a free ebook you can download at fitnessdistilled.com. that goes into all of the gritty details about program design and includes a lot more examples. It's called the Transformation Templates, and it's free when you sign up for my newsletter. So check that out, the link is in the description.